Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Types in embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka the Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven. Peace, blessings, and welcome to another episode of the Father's Haven, where this week we have the distinct honor of having Dae-Lee Arrington in the building to discuss fatherhood. So Dae-Lee is a social entrepreneur, community activist, an equity accelerator, an award nominees for the Grammy, producer. He's also been recognized for 40 Under 40. Those are just some of the small areas that he's navigated, but he's also a artistic spirit and soul who has done so much for not only this community and the people in the community. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Dae-Lee. Welcome, brother.
What up, Kelly? Appreciate you. The introductions, man. You trying to get on Nori's level. You know what I mean? You trying to get on Nori's level. I see you.
Bro,
I appreciate
look,
it, man.
Man, hey, I'm trying to get on your level. Let's keep it 100. Amazing work.
Stop, man.
Amazing work, right? And we don't recognize that enough. And so today, this is really about us digging deep into that process that we call life, that's always life and that has shaped, molded, and created the evolving being that you are. So Dave, we're gonna start off with tell me two things that you're grateful for and who are you becoming as a father?
Got you. Two things that I'm grateful for. I'll say I'm grateful for experience. When I say that, negative, positive, all in between, is very evident, I guess, in the season of life that, again, everything is just an opportunity for growth, opportunity for expanded perspective, that who knows how it's going to be necessary and used in the future. So again, I would say experience is something I'm grateful for. Also just always super grateful for family. Family has always been very important to me throughout my life. And now as a father of 3, going on 15 years of marriage, again, family continues to be something that's super important that I strive to be, I would say, a better steward of. So yeah, that'd be the two things I'm grateful for right now. And then what was the other question you asked me?
Who are you becoming as a father?
Who am I becoming as a father? Who am I becoming as a father? I would say I'm becoming a more humble father. When I say that, I'm not saying that I've been a very prideful person or father, but what I'm saying is as I continue to grow as a father, with my oldest now being 12 and my youngest 2, I'm just realizing more and more how humbling being a father can be. And I would say even more, how much more grace I probably should have had and should have for my father. You know what I'm saying? So it's humbling as I do the father thing.
I love that response. It's going to take me into this other direction. Can you share a little bit about your journey into fatherhood and how it's just shaping your identity today?
Sure. So I was, or I am, the next to the youngest of four kids. I have an older sister, older brother, and a younger brother. And my journey or experience with my father, I would say high level wasn't the most uh, intimate. And when I say intimate, it's like I really can't say I know my father at a deep level at all. My father was the guy until who was there until the year after high school. When I say there, within the dynamic of our family with my mom. But even though with him being there, he wasn't there because he was working for the most. I mean, his presence was going to work. You know what I mean? One memory that I hold on to is on the weekends before you understand as a kid what working looks like. Him coming to say goodbye to me and my brothers in our room, and a consistent question being, do you have to go to work today? And his response would simply be, do you want to eat? And I was like, okay. So again, I would say not really knowing him as a human being and as a person, just knowing him as father, discipline, working, providing, as well as within the context of our family and definitely his brothers being a jokester, you know what I mean? But that is the core of who I know him to be. I really don't know him at a deeper level. And for me, that was something and how it shaped me through, I would say, a lot of trauma of just how things kind of fell apart. Relationship with my own father has kind of formed me into someone who, one, wants my children to know me, and wants to be vulnerable with them, want to use myself as an opportunity to teach them and to guide them. And I mean, in short, I don't want them to be, my age and be like, I don't know my dad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want that to be the case for them. So I would say more than anything, my own journey with my father has very much set me on a journey of understanding the importance of vulnerability, and how would I say, having a true relationship with my children where, again, I'm known, they allow me to know them, and we can, how would I say, journey together as human beings. Yes, I'm your father. Yes, you're my children. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And to my earlier answer, that requires a level of humility, even up from me as the father. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like that's very much what my journey has looked like when it comes to, and I'll even add this, which I feel like a lot of people can identify with, is the reality that definitely with how things kind of shook with my relationship with my father and our family, very much had a season of, how would I say, distance from this thing I value, which was family. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to create the pain that was created for my family with how things fell out. And which again just speaks to my love for family. I didn't want to inflict that type of pain as a dad, as a husband on some other human beings, my children, what have you. So I definitely went through that. Which, if you want to stereotype, is the idea of just fatherlessness. It's the idea of, and again, there's part of me that believes that fatherlessness can exist even when a father is quote unquote present. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So for me, that very much played a big part in how things kind of shook out in a negative sense with my family and my father specifically. Very much pushed me away from wanting to be a father, period, wanting to be a husband, period. But thankfully, when I moved here to Charlotte, my uncle became I call him my adult father. So he fathered me into my adulthood, and the connection be that he's my dad's brother. Like he has the same DNA, the well runs deep in the same ways. But to see how drastically different he was and how he engaged with his wife, engaged with his children, very much, I would say, not just inspired me, but he equipped me with the tools to be more confident in my passion to be a father, to be a family man. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I find myself right now. Again, with two preteens and a 2-year-old right now.
Here's what I love about what you just shared, right? Often, you made me take my hat off now. In an environment where we're so focused on fathers being present, and you mentioned the term fatherlessness or father absence. When I look at the research and data, when they term fatherless or father absence, it just means for them, actually, they're saying like the father's not involved, but it's the exact opposite of your experience. In many occasions, particularly, let's say Black fathers are, so based on research and data, the most involved and engaged, but they're termed fatherless or father absent because they're not in the home. And so it really makes us analyze this conversation around present versus presence. And I'll never forget a story of one of my experiences where I had a group of young men, and one of the young men was a white young man, and all the guys wanted to be in his shoes. He was the only one that came from a privileged background, but he was in the same group with them. The difference was everybody wanted to be him because they seen him come there with a chauffeur, and he's in his limousine, right? So you think he got everything because he has the material things, right? But the one tangible thing that he said when they was kind of pushing him to the side, and he said, well, and this was in gratitude sharing. I wish I was like y'all because your fathers, many of them are involved in your life, and that's who brought you here. I rode with somebody and my father's always working. So you took me immediately back almost 17 years. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I also seen how that whole group received him once he shared that component. And we neglect the presence piece, but that's one of the most powerful things that we can give to anyone, in particular our children. And when I look at you, the serial entrepreneur that I know you to be, as you're navigating in spaces, I've seen your kids right there with you going on the journey that you just shared a minute ago with you. So it's those memories that like are deeply supplanted inside the brain that can be life changing and write a whole different story. So man, I just love that you went there. And as you went there, it automatically made me think of what have been some of the biggest challenges that you face and how did you overcome them
As a father? Gotcha. Biggest challenges. I would say, I'm thinking in two different directions. One of those directions is navigating, again, the partnership with their mom. That is a challenging thing. Again, I have business partners and I know how challenging that is. And the way I look at it is, it don't get easier the closer you get. It gets more difficult the closer you get to the person. You get what I'm saying? Be it that, I've been married to their mom for, again, going on 15 years. The idea of it becoming easier and simpler, it hasn't been my reality. I'll put it that way. And be it that we're two wholly different people, have our wholly different journeys that have informed who we are today, navigating that difference and working together to collectively guide our children, and what my part is in that has been challenging because, again, my wife has her own perception of what fatherhood looks like, and you know what I mean. And I have my own perception of what fatherhood looks like, what I don't want it to look like, and same for her, what she doesn't want it to look like. And I think a lot of times, challenge has been doing our best not to operate out of fear, because both of us haven't had the best experience with our fathers. And a lot of times that can creep into informing out of fear what we do, what we don't do, or what we ignore and kick down the road. You know what I mean? So that's been challenging. And I would say organically, but also when to the how do we overcome it is like, it's like, I think it's an organic nature to it, but also a very intentional nature to not ignoring the pain that informs the fear. So navigating that, whether that's just through conversation, whether that's through independent or collective therapy, has been a part of unraveling what will never fully be unraveled until we die, you know what I mean? To hopefully allow us to for me to better serve as a father, her as a mother, et cetera, us collectively as parents. But yeah, again, it very much has to be intentional. Time does not heal all things. So I would say that's definitely one big challenge and something that we're continually growing and learning more about ourselves and how, for myself, how do I father well and not out of fear. But another thing would be now, like I said, having two preteens. It's the rectifying the reality for us currently that my girls were 12 and 11, their full-time job is within context of a school with people I don't know, kids I don't know. And you're talking about just me and my wife's journey. This is a whole lot of people in their own journey, experience, perspective, blah, 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 which are very much influencing the kids that, again, I am tasked as a father with guiding, protecting, et cetera, which, again, it can have its positives. Again, I'm all about exposure and learning and growing from others and their difference. But at the same time, the context of school for us right now has a level of ignorance and just not knowing that is challenging for me and can be difficult because, how would I say, your kids bring home stuff they don't even know where that came from. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do I even begin to unravel this thing that's been within your context for whoever knows how long within the context of school? So that has been challenging for us. And again, exposing areas where, man, we need to pay a little bit more attention to that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's been challenging. I guess how am I navigating it or addressing it? Again, I would say day by day, doing our best to be attentive and intentional. It's like these things don't pop up all of a sudden. So the little signs and conversations with our kids is very important to pick up on them and ask questions like, what does that mean when you say that? You know what I mean? Because again, what is it? It's, I think somebody used the terminology, that's how drifting happens. It's like, yeah, just a little bit, you're just chilling on your boat. And you look up, about 10 minutes, you done drifted all the way down the beach. So again, as someone, a father who very much wants to guide his children in the way that I feel like is best for them, being attentive and having those conversations with our kids with my kids is very important to me. And I believe ultimately something that can create an environment where I wouldn't say less drifting. I'd say less drifting can happen when it comes to away from what I believe is good and positive for my kids. So
I love how you shared the totality of relationship, uh, co-parenting as a married couple, and understanding that there is different information that we all bring to a table, a rearing of children, and being honest with like how do we navigate that. And then a lot of that is shaped, like kind of like you talked about earlier. You have many times we have what I consider to be our biological father, sometimes a spiritual father, sometimes a community father, and sometimes that not literal adopted father, but an adopted. Like for instance, I'll use you for example. You got 3 kids, but sometimes the truth is, if we have kids, we have more than those kids because they friends become, by extension of our children,
sure.
a part of our family and part of our responsibility and accountability to help rear, guide,
Sure.
support, and encourage. So, like, given that, I would ask you, in addition to your uncle and your biological father, who would you consider as role models in this fatherhood journey? Any lessons you took away from them? And if you was to name 3 people to put in the Mount Rushmore of fatherhood, who would those 3 people be outside of your family?
Outside of my family, Mount Rushmore of people, it would be Tracy Brown. I'm gonna say Tracy Brown. It would be Victor Gregory, and what else would I say? Um, hmm. You say I can't. It can't be family on Mount Rushmore.
Actually, you could put family on it. Go ahead.
Okay, so it would be my Uncle Jeff. So Tracy Brown is a guy from back home, Norfolk, Virginia, and I want to say around senior year after high school, proximate, same space, got to know each other, but very much became a mentor. And the key thing why he's on the Mount Rushmore is because he taught me what a goal was, which sounds mad weird. It's like, you know what a goal is? Like, no, I didn't. You know what I mean? And within the context of, how would I say? I'm sure some of it was just my natural disposition, more introverted, observant, but didn't understand the importance of looking forward, setting goals. So he very much taught me the importance of that, as well as I'll add, he was also the guy that told me don't come back home. So he again, he just knew, I think he just knew the importance of moving outside of my bubble. I don't know to what degree he just realized that, yeah, ain't nothing back home for me. So that's why he's on Mount Rushmore. Victor Gregory, he's also from back home, but he lives here in Charlotte. I would say I'll call him definitely kind of a spiritual titan in my life, and very much the guy. Him and his wife, I feel like, played a part in not just mentoring, but discipling me spiritually. And like I lived with him for maybe a couple years, I think after college, what have you. But how would I say? And he's not even a father, but his not just welcoming me in, but very much allowing me to glean from who he was, and just seeing his dedication to understanding what he believes, and living in that belief. It's very much critical to me in my own spiritual formation and development once I came here to Charlotte. So that's Tracy Brown, Victor Gregory, and finally, again, I would say most importantly would be my Uncle Jeff. Um, I often explain to people the family dynamic for me is my uncle is my father's brother, but also my uncle's wife is my mom. So relationship on both sides, very much consistent. So when I moved here to Charlotte, living with my uncle, working with my uncle, doing life with my uncle was very much, how would I say, the context was there. He understood me. The family dynamics on both sides. He's from where I'm from. So he was very much able to contextually and caringly usher me into this new space of being uncomfortable, growing, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'll just say his being present with him. When I say being present, yes, I lived with him. Again, I had house chores, you know what I mean? I work with him. He owns a mobile detailing business. So I work, again, I was with him to, again, doing church and other things together with him and the family. That was, again, he's my adult father. So very much, I think, I know that was critical for me. And even to this day, our ability to understand one another is just on a level that I'm not sure anyone else would be able to, because of that family connection and understanding. In him, I would say, making some of the same transitions and growing in some of the same ways that I grew. He did that years prior. So he was able to, again, hear the footsteps. This is how you do it. You know what I mean? And he would also be able to understand. And I feel like as we've gotten a bit older, we're able to have those deeper conversations. And I'll just put it this way. Some of the same family dynamics that I struggle with, he knows, because he has those same family dynamics, you know what I mean? So again, he would definitely be a key member on that Mount Rushmore when it comes to who I am and even who I've become to be as a father.
Love that. Look, Dave, so you kind of took me right into what I wanted to get into, which is, as we talk role models, and you talked about present versus presence earlier. How do you balance this with all the things we already talked about? Different experiences, wife, husband, all the things you do in community, activists, running cohorts, being a coach. How do you balance personal life, boundaries with work, parenting, boards you may sit on, right? And then what strategies do you put on place so that other men and fathers could kind of shorten their growth curve?
Sure.
What would be some of your suggestions?
Got you. So what I think is critically important, and sometimes we don't create the space for it, I would say, especially when I think of just as Black fathers in the context of what can typically be our upbringing that informs how we even look at fatherhood, is clarifying of vision and priority. So to use myself as an example, like I said, family's always been super important to me. Even if I didn't see it through the lens of I want to be a father, like family has always been super important to me. I've always been an entrepreneur through and through. Again, my grandfather owned a construction business, working with him from the day we could walk, feels like it. My uncle, detailing business. So family entrepreneurship has always been things that were in my DNA. But again, back to clarifying a vision for yourself, your family, as well as prioritizing what's important to live in that vision, I think is critical. What is it? Proverb says, a man without a plan, or again, it just emphasizes the importance of a plan and actually moving towards the vision. So I would say that's been super critical for me. And that's something that shifts and morphs from season to season. But taking the time to think about those things, write those things down. And again, I'm super keen on prioritizing what's most important because everything can't be most important. For me, again, off top, family is super important. That is why, again, you may see some of my kids with me when I'm out and about. That's why definitely you will see me navigating or shifting my schedule around my family. I know when I want to be home. I know when they get off school, and whether it's entrepreneurship, whether that's, work in the community, whatever it is, those things are less likely to move my family priorities than my family is to move those priorities. Why? Because family is most important. So all day, if I got something going on with my family that's important, yeah, we're going to have to reschedule this meeting. Yeah, we're going to have to, it's like all day. And why can I easily say that? Because I already know what's most important, what my vision is for myself as a father, my family, and what's important to help move me towards that vision. But if you don't know, you'll be all over the place. You know what I mean? So again, I would say that's been super critical for me. And I would encourage people to do that. But what else would I say? I think, like I alluded to before, just acknowledging seasons and the reality that you're going to grow to the day you die, and giving yourself grace to be able to do that. I think is super important, because who I was as a father, as a man, when my oldest were born is definitely not who I am now with my 2-year-old son. And that just took growth, that took learning. And why I even brought up the entrepreneurship side of things is when I had my 2 daughters, I was working a full-time job. You know what I mean? And I feel like it was I don't even say a felt need. It was something that I felt was expected of me to work a full-time job. But because I didn't have clarity of vision and I didn't prioritize things, I was just doing what I thought I needed to be doing. Instead of now, I'm intentionally, as an entrepreneur, doing things that will allow me to be present with my son. Like until he was 2, I was typically be hanging with him on Mondays and Fridays, me and my son. Again, it ain't easy being at home with a 2-year-old, but guess what? It's well worth it. You know what I mean? So again, I would say giving yourself grace, because I don't think I was a bad father with my 2 oldest. I think I did the best with what I knew at that phase. But if I think about someone who may be listening to this, is like, yo, how can you advance, and do much better sooner than I could? It's like, yeah, take the time to figure it out. You know what I mean? Yourself. What is the picture of a father that you want to? Who do you want to be as a father? Figuring that out. What is that vision? And then figuring out what it will require of you and prioritizing those things to be that. The sooner you can do that, the clearer you will be and be able to actualize what that looks like, rather than falling into something. And most times I feel like we fall into situations that isn't the ideal situation.
Man, I love that. One of the things that you really took me into in terms of thinking as you were talking was this idea of figuring it out. And then I know you right now, unintentionally, you went straight into reflection and introspection mode with your pose, right? And so I'm gonna
Mm.
ask you from an emotional standpoint, from society as men, we get put in this box of being provider and protector, right? And so what I'm
Mm.
gonna do is just for a couple words, we're gonna throw some things out there. I want you to respond with your word. As a father
Mm.
and a man, I'm a provider. You are a
Mm. I'll say protector.
all right. I'm gonna say I'm a nurturer. You are a
I am a carer.
all right. And so as we went back and forth, I'm also thinking like they forget like we educate our kids model the things we do, and that's how you shifted the paradigm and created generational blessings to all 3 of your kids that they'll pay forward, right? So,
Mm.
and you're view or your lens, how important is emotional vulnerability, and how do you create that connection with your children?
Sure. No, that's great. And I may have misunderstood the exercise of the one word, but to tie in my answer to your question to that, I think, and even to the notion of doing the best of what you know, I think our view and interpretation of what these words mean, protector, provider, whatever, can be very limited. So when I say protector, is not just somebody that's going to fight for you. It's like, no, someone that's going to help you understand who you are as well as the world and help you navigate. And there, in that, there is care, there is love in that. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's just important to expand the boundaries of what does it mean to be a protector, a provider, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, no, those things, if done, I believe, holistically, they require care. They require vulnerability. They require love. You know what I mean? So to your question about vulnerability, it is, I feel like it's key. My upbringing, there was a lack of vulnerability. It was more of a do this because I told you to, you know what I mean? And we asked you why. It's like, because I said so, you know? So it's like, there was, again, this, how would I say, this othering, as if parents are other, you know what I mean? They're not human. It's like, no, parents are human. I think it's super important for my daughters, for my son, to understand that I am human, that I hurt just like you hurt. And even to this question, like, it makes me think about, it was maybe a month or so ago, my girls were like, you know, that I don't think I've ever seen you cry. And I'm like, now having me think, I'm like, is that true? Is that true? I don't know. Maybe it's true. Because I would say intentionally, I don't think I'm intentionally like not crying in front of them. But I think life can happen, and even you can segment life in such a way to where they don't get to see certain aspects of who I am. So again, I believe it's super important, and even thinking right now, and I think through a protection or protector lens, it's the idea of whether it's my girls or my boy, the idea of if I can show them what healthy vulnerability looks like, what healthy honesty, what healthy navigating of emotions look like, how much more prepared will they be to navigate within their own life? You know what I mean? These dynamics within relationships, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's critical for me to exude those things, for me to practice those things with my children.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Because that's the other thing, right? Part of that provider is providing an educational instruction outside of the school setting that prepares them to be able to navigate life when they're an adult and we're no longer there, because those lessons, those values, those characteristics, most of the time is generally passed down through what they've seen us do. And so back to your comment, like, do as I say, not as I do. That don't work.
Sure.
Because they see us, right? So what are some of the values that for you, you consider very important that you make sure that your children are grasping that concept?
Values. I would say numero uno would be belief. And when I say belief, it's knowing what you believe and why you believe it. So I think often that's solely viewed through a spiritual lens. And I believe, our spiritual beliefs are super important to us as Christ followers, but that's not the end all be all. And I would say is more expansive than how we typically speak or view it within our current society. So again, I would say belief is a very important value. I would say, as you know, relationships are very important to me. And when I say relationships, is like knowing, valuing others is very important. What I say is another core value that's critical as a father. I would say honesty is also super key for me. And I think about honesty can typically be used within a sense of addressing lies and untruths. You know what I mean? Which, yes, very much is key in, but I also see honesty as a tool to pull back the layers of, I'll just say generally, ignorance. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what? I'm not being truthful with myself about why I'm doing this. Why is that? I got to be honest with myself. You know what I mean? So again, honesty or truth is super important. And I would say, I mean, all of these we can dive deeper in and add more layers and color to them. But if I said core three, it would be that. It would be belief, relationships, and honesty.
Look, look. So as you was unpacking, I'm in my mind thinking like some of the work you do around bridge builders and really pushing people to tap into who they are, the importance of context, and really challenging people to go deeper. So that intrinsic curiosity that you have, for me, fits right into that belief, right? What do you believe in? Why do you believe it? Was it something that was transferred from your experience and your exposure, but did you really challenge it, right? And so that value of relationship is tied directly and proportionally to that. But then also, you are a community guy, right? So that this idea of Ubuntu, I am because we are, which is what most people say, but they forget the we are because I am, which says that we're all connected one to another. And without that, then again, this goes back to what we were talking about when our kids have friends, they become a part of our family. The people who we interact and engage with, it's not this superficial relationship. So I'm saying that to really ask from a fatherhood standpoint, and a haven for men and fathers to be able to feel like they belong. How do we create those spaces of belonging from a communal standpoint, in your perspective?
Got you. Heard. As I'm thinking about how I respond to that, I don't think I would deviate much from the consistent philosophy and framework of the work I do as bridge builders. I think it's super important to create space where men as human beings can just be men and human beings, even apart from being a father. Because much, if not all, of what makes us a father is who we are as a human being. So when I say that, it's just the idea of acknowledging the reality that I don't want, not to take it in a negative sense, because it's not said in a negative sense, but a father is not who you are. It's very much something you're privileged to be able to do, but at your core, you are a human. You are Kelly. You hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I am David. I'm Dae-Lee. And that is super important and impacts how I father. You know what I'm saying? So I think space to just shed, and you've been through the cohort to shed your titles is super important. It's like, yeah, let me shed this title, let me shed this title, um, to as much as possible uh, be who you are at your core. I think it's super important because if I speak about myself, I put a lot of pressure on myself as a father. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of, I would say, unhealthy ways. And I think a lot of that is because of who I am or who I've become as David or Dae-Lee in my experiences as an individual, void of any children. You know what I'm saying? So if I don't have the space to be me and to dive into me, be honest with myself, reveal certain things, the level in which I can do that will very much indicate the level in which I can be a father. You get what I'm saying? So I think that at its core is super key. And obviously, in my mind, create space for that vulnerability, create space for that level of honesty that can be uncommon. It creates space for being open to listening and learning from others in ways that you may typically be too proud to. You know what I'm saying? So like, I ain't got no time to hear that white stuff. That's white kids, you know. It's like true, but just listen. You know what I mean? Be open minded. Maybe there are some things that you can take. You know what I mean? Some meat that you can take and implement within your context. And just like to your earlier illustrations, like, yeah, you know, I'm doing it because I'm present. I'm everywhere they need me to be. Or let me take it back. I'm present. You know, I'm in the house. I'm protecting. Blah blah blah. But to your young man's sentiment is like, yeah, but you're never there, Dad. You know what I mean? So I think we can be so busy performing under the title, but neglect who we are, and in turn actually be performing out of I would say obligation in a negative sense, and actually not
Mm-hmm.
bringing the outcomes or making the impact that we truly want to, because we're neglecting who we are in our human state.
Love it, love it. Look, so as we kind of look at that piece and move beyond the title, because for us, in addition to the title, I don't care whether you're from England, France, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, or the United States. There is this term, and we talked about provider and protector kind of being the narrow minded role that men operate in when you use the word that I love to use, which is holistic and comprehensive, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just a provider and protector unless you're talking about providing in a sense. Back to what you said, right?
Sure.
There is another meaning to providing. When I'm providing instruction, I'm providing reflection, I'm providing support, I'm providing all these things. And so, in totality, although it may appear to be this one word that's down this one lane, it's really like this intricate highway with all these intersections and bypasses that really kind of scope out who I am, who I'm becoming. But I don't even get there unless I do what you talked about earlier. Is like, who am I at my core? And
Mm-hmm.
with intentionality, who do I choose to show up as? And
Sure.
what do I embrace along that journey, right? To be able to help me to be the best version of myself will help me to be the best version as a father. Like, and so some of that is back to the curiosity. And I would ask you, in the world where we're dealing with AI, right? Artificial
Mm-hmm.
intelligence, cell phones, computers, all these things that really cause us to be distracted from being completely immersed in what's right before us. Uh, how do we navigate that space so that we can bring in the relationship between father, son, father, daughter, father, family, and father community?
Interesting. You're just talking about all the technology. Current conversation with my girls is responsibility, and until you've shown yourself to be responsible, why do you need it? You know what I mean? And uh, it's part of me that feels, or our approach thus far when it comes to technology and all that jazz is, again, identifying the purpose for it. So my girls, the sole purpose for it right now, from a laptop perspective, is education. Absolutely, you can have education. They don't have cell phones. Bought them these little watches so we can stay in touch and they can text or whatever. How long do you think it took for them to break them? So it's like, yeah, you're not responsible enough. But I do believe, I mean, it's not something we're aiming to, or I'm aiming to ignore, is a reality, because it's a part of their reality. Ain't no way to get around it. And a part of, if you want to say providing, is like, no, I need to provide them with the information to use it responsibly, to navigate this world, which is their reality. So I would say, in part, I think it's a very much, you said balancing earlier, and I couldn't help but think about a friend when I brought up balancing a while ago. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure balance is a reality. Maybe it's more of a holding the correct tension, you know what I mean? With where you are. And like thinking about whether it's the latest memes or TikTok videos and things of that nature. I feel like being able to relate can communicate a level of desire and importance of being connected to my daughters or my children. But at the same time, in the opposite direction, intentionally inviting them outside of their world is just as important. Because it's like the grass is always greener scenario. It's like, no, I want to be able to. It's like, yeah, but if you actually turn around and look at the grass and, tend to the grass, like, you missing all of this, you know what I mean? So, and I think about the word ignorance. I think to a great degree, the younger generation is just ignorant to those realities. Like, man, what would getting on a mountain look like? Again, I'm not the biggest outdoors person, but it's like, if you've been there, it's like, it's some awe and some wonder. It's like, oh man, you know what I mean? What does going on a family trip look like? You know what I mean? Where technology is not a factor. What does, how would I say, getting in space with family and friends and enjoying one another's presence where you don't even be thinking about your phone? Obviously, that takes intention, that takes work. But I believe there is a tension that has to be held because you're not going to get around technology. That's a fact. But being intentional around how you guide your children in their use of it. And the reality, yeah, just because it's on the internet don't mean it's true. It's like these are skills that you have to take time to teach, while also, again, creating space. As my kids joke now, it's like, back in the old days, we used to go outside and play. It's like, but no, legit, that's the reality. We get so far from what was and what was of value. Like I'm thinking right now, family reunions. Family reunions are becoming a something that's at risk. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, family reunions are great. You know what I mean? Knowing where you come from, the people you're connected to, et cetera. Again, family, like any other group of people, they have their drama, whatever, but it's like thinking about the other side of not knowing who you are, not knowing your family, et cetera, is like, I don't want that. And for us not to get there, it takes getting away from the internet where you're quote unquote connected, but not really. It takes having conversations in person and not chatting over the internet. So again, I think there's a tension to be held between the two worlds, but also, what I feel like is probably more difficult on the behalf of a father is being intentional in creating those opportunities for them to connect and experience relationship and in person in real life outside of the internet.
Love it. I'll add this before I ask this last question. You framed out something that was so beautifully woven and interconnected as it relates to addressing the technology piece because you have intentionally prioritized family. So you created a model or a template that although technology is going to be there, like this connection piece is going to be there first. So I don't like, because I've seen people literally talk to people through text while they sitting at the same table. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm like, wow.
No, yo, I'll give you a perfect example. On our way to church on Sunday, we're visiting a friend. The church was like 30 minutes away, so we had some time. And while we were waiting for wife to get her coffee, I pulled out my phone and we played Hangman on my phone. Again, it's still technology. It's still in the palm of your hand, a phone, but it was very much personal interaction. And I would say connection, even leveraging the technology of the game being on my phone. So again, to me, I think there's a way to balance it. I don't know how to do it perfectly, but I feel like if you're not intentional with it, like you said, you'll be in the same room texting each other.
Look, as we talked all this, we talked fatherhood, we talked the importance of knowing your family reunion, right? It's almost like a process map. If you got this process map, you learn how to do it because you have this visual representation of what that process is. So for me, that speaks to ecosystems and legacy. So what legacy do you want to leave for your children? And how do you strive to make sure that becomes a reality?
What legacy do I want to leave? I would say I want to leave a legacy where the first thing that came to my mind is that, that I was real. And when I say real, it's all dynamics of that realness. You know what I'm saying? Not this perception of I'm real is like, nah, even the unpleasant aspects of I'm real. I would say also just a legacy of, again, caring for people is super important to me. It's one other thing I thought about just from my legacy perspective is what's the best way to communicate this? Through understanding yourself, understanding that your path will be your path. And it's I would say it's no better than anyone else's. When I say that, it's the idea that, and this is something that I am navigating with my work with Bridge Builder Consulting within the larger context of equity work is the reality that I know who I am. I know where my strengths lie and what I excel at. It may not push all the buttons in the equity circle ecosystem, but guess what? That's okay. And again, it takes some knowing of yourself and being confident in yourself to be okay, you know what I mean, with that and to navigate that reality. But again, back to legacy, and definitely when I think about my girls and my boys in a very tangible way, is understanding that your journey, knowing yourself is super, super important to being able to determine what your journey is, and being content with that. Because my oldest girl she does have differing strengths than my youngest girl. One is not better than the other. You should not look down on one. You should not look down on the other. But you should realize that, okay, great. I am intentionally and strategically focused on who I am and, how would I say, being a good steward of my own journey, which may look different from the way my other daughter can intentionally do that and be a good steward of her journey. And again, no one is better than the other, but we can all have a journey that we, again, hopefully are excited by, content in, and find fulfillment in. So if anything, when I specifically think about my children, it's like, I want them to be that, you know what I mean? I want them to be able to sit in that for themselves. So, yeah.
Yo, I told y'all wouldn't be disappointed. Phenomenal work in the community. Before we kind of close this session out, can you tell them how to connect with you? Tell them some of the work you're doing with bridge building in regards to when there may be availability for another cohort so that they can tap into your network.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. So check out the website, webridgebuild.com. So webridgebuild.com. That is a company website on social, whether it's LinkedIn, it's Bridge Builder Consulting, but Instagram, Facebook, anything like that, it's We Bridge Build as well. So I would encourage you to tap in that way, specific to the cohort. When you go to the website, you'll see in the navigation a cohort link where you can learn more, as well as, if interested, request to join a future cohort. So I would say, just hit up the website, hit up the social channels as well. And even if you don't join a cohort, hopefully what we do post will be insightful and valuable to you. You muted, bro.
Last thing, any parting words for fathers or aspiring fathers?
Parting words. Keep coming back to what I stated before, is like, be patient, have some grace for yourself, but also intentionally connect with others who, again, maybe from the outside may not reflect what's inside, but at least look like something or resemble something that you value or where you want to be, and do your best to learn and grow with them. So, have grace with yourself. Ain't nobody perfect, but hopefully we'll consistently grow and become better.
Love it. Look, as y'all unpackage many of the jewels and nuggets that Dae-Lee brought to the table today, I want you to remember that he talked to you about having 3 kids and how distinctly different they are. And I've often heard the words that children don't come with instructions. I would challenge and assert that they do. If you're paying attention, they're going to show you who they are. Don't try to make them who you want them to be. Allow them to move into their own divine alignment so that they fulfill their purpose in the universe. Another phenomenal episode. Today was bridge building with my brother, Dae-Lee. And so follow him, support him. I'm going to tell you, you won't be disappointed if you go to the bridge building cohort because there's some amazing things that happen there. And then also find him on YouTube, some amazing conversations with some brilliant people.
Appreciate it, man.
Until I appreciate you, family. I'm just grateful. For y'all, I'll see y'all later. Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Types in embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka The Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven.